Hello and welcome to Note to File, a clinical research podcast.
A collection of interviews, candid commentary, and general nonsense for the clinical research community.
Check us out at notetofilepodcast.com.
And now, without further ado, on to the show.
Hey, it's another Note to File, the clinical research podcast that no one asked for.
But everyone needs.
I mean, debatable. How's it going?
The greatest. It's good. It's the last day of April.
It is?
Yep.
Okay.
April 30th. It's May Day tomorrow.
And then what? May? What is May Day?
I mean, May Day, like, it was like, technically, obviously not the first day of spring, but there was like, used to be celebrations. People have like the May Day pole, and then there'd be like ribbons, and there'd be like festivals, and people would dance. Like, there's like old school, like knights, castles shit, but like May Day.
Made it up.
And people would like drop off. I had a friend who used to like drop off baskets on my porch on May Day, kind of like an Easter basket.
No, I don't need friends like that.
To be fair, I was also in second grade. So.
I don't need baskets. All right, well, I can forgive second graders.
A little bit different.
Enthusiasm for May Day.
But okay. I'm pretty, I don't know. April's probably one of my I like April. My daughter's birthday is in April, but it might be my least favorite month outside of March. March is probably my least favorite.
Fair. Okay, well, next podcast we'll rank the months. Okay?
I could do that now.
Enthralling. That'll be enthralling for everyone.
What day is it today?
Well, today it's International Jazz Day.
I'm not a big jazz fan. I'm not so I see that.
Well, it's because you don't have a very sophisticated musical palette.
I mean, accurate. That's probably not incorrect. And I understand I like going to New Orleans and the historical significance of jazz in a lot of different ways, but it's just not something I would turn on a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fair. Jazz is there's a lot of good jazz. There's also a lot of bad jazz, frankly. So I get it. It hasn't exactly been the most popular over the last, decade or so. So I get it. I think that's fair. It's also National Hairstyle Appreciation Day, apparently. Don't know what that means, but
how do you feel about it? I like your hairstyle, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any hair, so I appreciate actually that I don't have to dealing with hair anymore.
There you go. I love the self-appreciation, self-love, always important.
It's true. Shout out Christian. No, I want the basket now. He says he's thankful he saved the receipt to my basket, but now I insist on a basket. I'll call you up publicly if I don't get a basket. Today's actually also Mr. Potato Head Day, which I was never really a fan of playing with as a kid.
I think the original Mr. Potato Heads are fascinating, and I mean the original Mr. Potato Heads. There's
a literal potato.
It's a potato, and it was pieces you put in a potato.
I mean, that's just a potato. It's not Mr. Potato Head.
It's an accessorized Mr. Potato.
Fair enough. Well, if you got a Mr. Potato Head, break it out. Have some fun with it today. Man, it's a lot of days today. National Raisin Day. People hate raisins in their cookies. I like them. There, I said it.
I am, non-plus. I wouldn't say negative, but just I wouldn't be oh, raisins, super excited.
Well, it's actually also National Oatmeal Cookie Day, so I think that's not a coincidence. It's National Tie-Dye Day. It is National Tabby Day. So shout out kitty cats.
How about National Siamese Day? When is that?
I don't know when that is.
Because I have a little friend sitting over here.
Well, you know what? It's not their day.
It's not a tabby.
They can wait their turn. They can wait their turn.
Bean can wait her turn.
It's National Larry Day, so shout out to all the Larrys out there.
I don't know if I know any Larrys.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I do either necessarily, but that's okay. Shout out to them anyway. So, I mean, the big news in the field here over the last, 48 hours or so.
48 hours.
was did you watch the actual like press conference? Like,
I'm going to be really honest. I did not watch the whole thing. I watched
yeah,
pieces of it, and then I used the AI thing to try to find the pieces that I like wanted to hear about and like skip to those segments and like watch little clips of it, but I did not watch the whole thing. Did you?
I did.
So you know all the things now.
Sober too, which was challenging, but it was interesting. Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I didn't know about it. I just actually saw like a random LinkedIn post that somebody was like, "Oh, this is happening," and I think I was whatever an hour late, but like I again went back and watched the whole thing. Um, Interesting. I found it really interesting and like I don't know, weird that like in 2026 the FDA is talking about cloud computing and big data, which I was like, feels like very 2015 kind of thing. Like, wasn't that was like stuff that was being talked about back then? But we are talking about clinical research. We tend to be a little bit behind the times.
About 10 years behind, which actually tracks if we're
Yeah, I mean it all does track, and it was interesting. I'll read a little bit from their press conference here. FDA announces 2 major steps as part of an initiative to advance the implementation of real-time clinical trials, RTCT. First, they unveiled the successful initiation of 2 proof of concept clinical trials that will report endpoints and data signals to the agency in real time. And second, they released a request for information regarding proposed pilot program for RTCT that will launch this summer.
Okay, so what do you mean a successful initiation? It means you successfully announced that you're doing
Well,
this?
it's
You got the words out successfully?
you successfully a successful initiation of 2 proof of concept there's a lot of sort of like vagary going on here, which my understanding was these trials hadn't actually started yet.
Okay.
So don't know if that's true or not. But he went on to talk about the 45% dead time in a clinical trial that he claims that there's no patient enrollment happening. It's just data being crunched, which I'm not smart enough to know if that's like a legitimate statistic. It doesn't seem like it, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
So
And
are they talking about like between when enrollment stops and when it gets submitted? Like what dead time are they talking about?
yeah, I mean, I'll admit
Like
that
from
wasn't
data lock to submission?
clear to me. And I'm going to also reference a few articles here. So Dirk
Okay.
Arts from Caster, shout out Dirk. Derek, shout out Derek. Let me give you the proper pronunciation there. Wrote a little bit about this too, and actually it was nice because he addressed some of the things that like jumped into my mind. When these things come out, I'm always like, when I don't understand, I'm like, am I an idiot? And like they know something I don't, or like, am I asking legitimate questions? So it's just nice to see some validation because something else I pointed out, like, I went to LinkedIn to like see what it's just people clapping and jumping up and down about how great of a thing this is. I'm like, but okay, but like, and that makes me suspicious too. Anything that doesn't get some level of criticism like makes me a little bit suspicious that everyone is like, this is great. It's going to be great.
I mean, there's not enough information to like there's you know what I'm saying? There's not enough substance to even react to at some level, right? Like
Yeah.
it's all vague directional statements that are like, we want to make it more efficient. We want to make it more direct and interoperable. It's a bunch of like vague things. It's like, yeah, nothing's wrong with those concepts. Yes, everyone in the industry wants to make it more efficient. Everyone wants to make things more interoperable. But like outside of just like throwing out things that everyone blanket statement's going to agree with is kind of like, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to react to, but like, do you actually know how the fuck you're going to do that?
Yeah. Well, I will say, so to address the dead time thing, I mean, Dirk wrote in his, the LinkedIn article here, community correctly pointed out that the dead time McCary's referring to between the last patient visit and submission isn't just paperwork, it's quality control, query resolution, source data verification, event adjudication, database locks, and biostatistics. You can't simply bypass the data cleaning process without risking false safety signals based on simple entry errors or risking trial integrity through unblinding, which I will say unblinding is another sticking point I've seen multiple people bring up. So if you're basically streaming real-time data to the FDA, and so let me go back. There was a nice little board with some pictures on it that Marty stood in front of. Hey, if you're in 60, don't call yourself Marty anymore. Just Martin is fine.
I feel
Don't
like
be-
there's
don't
a
be- don't be
space
Marty.
though. When you get back to like 80s or 90s, Marty becomes acceptable.
Okay, I'll buy that. I yes, you can be Marty when you're a kid, and then you're like middle of your life. You think you need to be Martin, and then you can go back to Marty once you're like a retired big fat party animal who wears Hawaiian shirts. You can go back to being Marty.
See, I
But
thought of like
anyways.
someone in an overall sitting on a porch named Marty.
Okay, that's good. I'll take
Same
that
vibe
too.
though.
But essentially, they're claiming that a big bottleneck in drug development is, the inefficiency by which, the data is being reported, back and forth or to the FDA. So they're creating a process by which, from what I can gather, like data I'm entering at the site would be streamed directly to the FDA, and presumably in hopes that the FDA can, I guess, catch some kind of early signals to say whether bad stuff's happening, there's safety concerns, or maybe they're saying, hey, there's great signals. Maybe the trial can end early. I mean, I think that's still a little bit unclear. That's some of what he said in one of the things here. Which then, of course, raised a bunch of other questions in my mind. Like the first one, and also, again, I was happy to see Dirk ask it because I was wondering, like, am I stupid for wondering this? But are sponsors actually going to want the FDA to see unclean, unadjudicated endpoint data live? And I think that period that's a question I'm curious to know. Like, is that a good thing for a sponsor?
Does anyone want that? I don't think that's good for sites either, really. Right?
I mean, I don't know. And I thought about this. I don't see it having impact on sites necessarily.
Well, but if your data now it's directly coming from, and that's the other question I have, is what data are we talking about here?
So they seem to hint at EHR data, and
which makes no sense because that's not all clinical trial data you need.
Well, and my other understanding, again, this is why it's obnoxious, because it's incredibly vague. But they're working with Paradigm, who I've asked for years, like, what the hell do you guys do? But I guess maybe this is the answer, or at least getting closer to the answer. But they seem to be providing an eSource platform by which that data can get streamed potentially to the FDA as well as the sponsor. Fine. That doesn't seem like at least not a technological breakthrough, but that's fine. Maybe that's not the point. Here, I'm going to actually stop and address Joe Dustin here about dead time. We definitely have pharma that are locking databases in days to 1.5 weeks after last patient, last visit. I don't think this is a mainstream metric, but it is getting easier. Reduced time to database lock was one of the top 3 value props of PDC in the first place. Yeah, so I mean, doesn't that just say that there's maybe not as much dead time as there need to be? He goes on to say, now with eSource, modernized data acquisition processes from sites, patient labs, everything, we conceptually get to usable TLFs on pharma exec's desk every 48 hours. Not there yet, but in 2 years, totally possible. Fair enough. Is this like a significant bottleneck in the clinical development process? Maybe it is, and I don't know. Again, I live on the site side. I only get one view of this. All I ever hear is that it's patient enrollment that takes up all the time and all the money. To Joe's point, I mean, I have to imagine where we're going, if not where we already are. I mean, the data part should be the easy part, right?
Well, and I think like there's easier solutions to, in our current model, make the data exchange easier and more streamlined. But I think like the question I have about, like, to your point, is it's like the data exchange, like getting data from one place to the other, is a relative, like, we have technology now, we just need to implement it in a way that makes sense. Like, that's not the part in my mind that's like, it's not taking me tons of time to actually like send the data from one place to the other. It's all of the things that are happening, like the validation of the data, the cleaning of the data, the queries of the data, the analysis of the data, the standardization, like all of that takes time. And I am sure there are efficiencies that could be gained in the process. I am very not sure how saying, okay, we're just going to cut that and give it to the FDA absolves the need for any of that. Like maybe validation because you're getting it direct from source. You don't need to validate the source, right? But that it could be handled through.
What happens if I put in the source wrong? What happens if I make a bunch of errors on my data entry? Like, is that getting streamed directly
Like
to the FDA?
right, and the queries like to put stuff in, like that should still be being monitored, right? So like I just am really unclear as far as like what efficiencies are actually happening here. And if the goal is efficiency, it doesn't seem like the focus is safety per se. And you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of what this is driving is not like we're concerned about patient safety in trials. So it's not like we're seeing AEs and SAEs and the FDA needs to see those more quickly and they're going to stop the trial. I feel like folks are already fairly responsive to like safety concerns potentially. So like if the goal is efficiency, I'm just really struggling to see like, are you just going to then stop the trial and be like, hey, we have signals, this works, this is great, let's move it on? Like what's
Yeah, I guess we'll see in time. I mean, to me, you know, the immediate joke I made was that like, you know, great, now the FDA can see me not enroll any patients in real time. Like the problem is still the data from the patients in the first place because the protocols are garbage, or protocols are very challenging and difficult to be a little bit more, you know, diplomatic. And this doesn't solve that like at all. So, I mean, that's cool. You'll get the slow lack of data more quickly, I suppose. But again, I've never lived on that side of things. So I've been curious, and I guess we've seen a little bit more over the last like day of people kind of talking more about it. And again, I thought, you know, for somebody who works at a, you know, tech company, I assume there's more chatter on that side than there is on site side, where I feel like we're
yeah,
not we
not
we get
everything.
nothing out of this, which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not necessarily for us, I guess, but if you were to stand back and look at all the things or the bottlenecks that were there, you'd be like, well, this ain't the first one I would jump on.
Well, right. And I think this is something I think it's interesting from Jonathan. Shout out YouTube comments. Is that it seems to be similar to just-in-time manufacturing, where more activities are happening in parallel during the trial rather than in sequence at the end. And that's the parallel I was going to kind of draw from like the software development process here. Like there's a couple different methodologies for how you develop software, and like waterfall versus agile, for example. And so waterfall is like everything happens like sequentially, and then you get to the end and you have the product. But agile is much more like sprint based, where you're doing a lot smaller things and iterative things, so you can more proactively find things that are incorrect and address things and be more like in tune with like small things, rather than saying like, here's this major feature that we finally get to the end. And so in theory, I like that concept. Is there a way to implement cohorts and things within clinical trials, so it's not just this one massive behemoth that's a package at the end for submission? And is there a way to fake it and see cohorts and like just fundamentally changing how we design and review? Like I think there potentially is some value there to see early signs, but then there's still some more parameters, controls around some of the activities that like just need to happen around verification, validation, monitoring, analysis. You just do it in more like, you know, phased chunks rather than just like massive, giant iterations. But that doesn't seem like what, like how everything I've seen it in vague explanation has not been focused on that. It's been more on like the technology connectivity, which in grand scheme of things doesn't actually seem that innovative. We already have ways to directly integrate and share data. That's not an innovative technology.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I left watching the whole press conference being kind of like, okay. And but they definitely trotted out a whole bunch of people on stage to talk about how great it was. So again, maybe I'm being a little too skeptical, as I often am accused of being. Well, and even then, so let's go backwards too, though. So this is with, again, I feel like this kind of like misses the forest for the trees. So great, you've got one company, one tech company who can stream you data. Again, like, isn't the bigger picture is interoperability, right? Like, would be another thing if everyone could do that, or if that was a mandate by which that would presumably require some standardization, which, if that were the case, could actually potentially solve a lot of problems, right? And not just something like this.
Right.
So why aren't we just going straight to why aren't we just straight forcing and standardization rather than saying like, yeah, we'll pick this company that I've never heard of or seen in the wild, other than they raised a whole bunch of money. Is that going to be like scalable or useful in any way?
Well, and I think it's interesting because, yeah, I think you see that a lot of times too with new technology solutions that are tried out and like, oh, this is what this could be. This is so cool. Like, we're going to connect in here. But yeah, to your point, who's using it? Who's required to use it? So you're going to say like all data, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't seem like a scalable solution. If we're going to connect to EHRs, okay, well, you're going to go in and plug into every site's EHR.
Yeah, that's another. I'd be curious, and I guess we'll get some visibility potentially on like what sites are working on these studies. I'd be curious to know like what that experience is like from the site level.
Yeah, or if it gets to that point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's true. But I am curious. They named the trial, so at least that information is public, and then maybe I'll snoop around and see if we can find.
See if you can get on one of those trials.
Info on
get
the back
selected.
No, I do not want to do that. But no, I mean, again, interesting. And again, I feel like I just feel like I'm in crazy town sometimes. I see this stuff and I'm like, what? And then I go in and everyone's like, this is great. This is going to change everything. I'm like, what? How? What do I
No, it's
not
great. Don't worry
get
about
here?
it.
I
Great.
know.
Well, like that's the conversation I have with someone like, I'm not getting it. Like, it's similar to your point, I guess, where you're looking at, you're like, I don't understand. Like, am I missing something? And it's like, no, someone had an idea who vaguely heard a concern. They sat around and said, oh, what if we did this? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And then they announced it without actually having any concept of what it is, how to do it, what it actually entailed, or actually having any experience in being involved in clinical trials, in the operations of clinical trials. Of course, these people have been involved at some level, but like,
yeah, of course. I don't know. And maybe to Jonathan's point that this model AI becomes the standardization because so it normalizes maps and interprets the messy data. So it just means all we need to do is get the data there by any means, and AI will do its magical AI things and standardize that data in some way. Maybe that is true. What I actually found interesting during sort of because he brought up in passing something about IRB changes or IRB modernization. And then somebody brought it up during the Q&A sort of at the end, and he didn't go like crazy into it, but talking about how essentially local IRBs are a bottleneck in clinical trials, which I don't disagree with.
Right, but like, pick a lane, pick a topic.
Well, and again, I think this is something that he maybe hinted at, like coming down the line and like some later announcements or something like that. And talking about how oh, these local IRBs who only sometimes meet once a month and it takes really long time. And look, we all know that is a problem. But also, like, what can you do? Can you regulate
have to
local IRBs? Like, I feel like that's an unlikely thing to do. I mean, I do think, again, this is one of those things where I'm sort of in between the two. Like, I see great value in, maybe some standardization by which, first of all, let me say, I don't love the central IRBs and some of their other practices and some of the other things they do. Obviously, we had a whole show about it with an investigative reporter. Local IRBs can be problematic, but also I do think it's perfectly reasonable for a community to say, like, we want oversight as to what research is happening in our community and how it's being handled, and they should have a right to do so, even if it slows a trial down by 2 or 3 months. I mean, maybe that's a trade-off we just have to live with. I don't know.
Well, and I think, but that's, coming back to this real-time clinical trials thing, like, yes, we want things to be more efficient and faster? Are there some things where the actual outcome is more important than doing it faster?
Yeah, I mean, yes, obviously, yes.
So,
I
but
mean,
like for what we're talking about here, like to your point, if I were to say like, and again, we tend to be swing more site focused, so we're going to focus on the problems that are most prevalent for the sites, right? But even even the folks I talk to, right? Like, so to your point, patient recruitment and getting folks in trials and eligible patients in trials is a massive concern. And I would argue that it's not just, a biased perspective from folks who are more site centric or site focused. Because when I go to all of these industry conferences, a huge amount of the vendors in the space are patient recruitment
a
vendors.
lot of them, yeah.
So companies are spinning up, people are funding them, and people are interested enough for them to be this many patient recruitment vendors across the space. So in my mind, that is a huge problem. What I'm not seeing is a bunch of people being like, we're struggling with our data, back-end data pieces of it. You know what I'm saying? So like, yes, maybe that takes time. Maybe there are things we could do to make it slightly more efficient, but does some of that work just have to be done? And we maybe just have to take the time to make sure the data is validated, clean, and analyzed in a way that is making sure we're doing good science?
Yeah, probably. I mean, no, that the more I do this and the longer time goes on, the more I'm sort of relegated to the fact that, like, yes, this is going to be kind of slow and methodical because that's what science is. You can't,
Right.
I don't, yes, we would love to make things more, and we should continue to innovate and make things more efficient and faster where we can. But like, there's really no, I mean, there's no shortcuts, right?
For some of it.
To
And
doing
like,
things appropriately.
and to your point, like the things that are going to create those efficiencies where we have them are not going to be like point individual vendor specific solutions in my mind.
Yeah.
It's going to be adopting standards where we can all work together moving forward in a way that is like a collective good.
Sure.
And so I mean
Well,
again,
there is an RFI
yeah.
active now. So a request for information. Um, they want interested parties in the public to share their input on a proposed pilot program to assess how AI-enabled technology can improve efficiency, speed, and quality decision making. Talking about early phase clinical trials, and just talk about some of the challenges, including limited patient populations and claiming that AI may be able to improve patient recruitment and some of these things. So there's like a list of a bajillion questions. So I'm curious to see when that closes at the end of May. It's about a month.
They changed their RFI response times in efforts to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse and be more efficient. It used to be 6 months. They changed to 30 days.
Okay. Well, that's good because at 31 days, I was going to do some fraud. Thankfully, they
Cut it off.
closed the loophole on that. Got
Yeah.
me.
And I think, I mean, I don't know, like maybe there is some positive that can come from this, potentially the RFI, right? If folks respond and say, hey, this is where we should be focusing, and we get this sort of initiative for real time clinical trials, focusing on efficiencies, focusing on interoperability and using technology where technology is appropriate, and enough folks provide valid feedback that we could adapt this to be something that could be beneficial and helpful. As it stands now, it seems pretty vague and nonsensical.
Yeah. I mean, at least vague. I mean, it's hard to know if it makes sense or not. I mean, I feel like these things are not made to be easy to understand. And if you work in this industry, I feel like it should be easy to understand. So we'll see. I'll keep reading up on it and getting into it. I do like that we're seeing a little bit of proliferation of more people kind of beating it up a little bit. I mean, it's a good sign. So at least we can. If it's going to be pointless, then it's better to fail fast, as they say. And I like that open criticism of these things rather than everyone celebrating something that is unclear if it will have any true value.
Well, and I would say like positive spin on this is that there is more recognition of clinical trials and how to improve it across the board at a more global level, as opposed to just cutting costs and saying we'll make it work. So like, you know, I will take that as a positive, right? Like
Sure. Trying to do something,
acknowledging that's a thing that needs support. Is the positive
Well,
I'll take away.
I guess, you know, if the concern of sponsor companies is regulators, and regulators are at least playing ball with sponsors, then I mean that's a good sign. And again, maybe this ain't it, but it's maybe a sign that, you know, if they can work together, we could get to what it is,
what it needs to be.
What could actually be, yeah, what could actually help. I just know, again, like, you know, again, sitting at the site side, you see there's like, all right, well, so what? Just doesn't move the needle for me at the site level. But, you know, I know it's not just about us, but
yeah,
I haven't seen a lot of sponsors jumping up and down other than the ones who were
well, to your point, it's a weird spot for sponsors to be in my mind, I would think, because now all of a sudden you're losing.
And doesn't it put them in more, like, potentially more risk? Yeah, I mean, It seems like to open up a lot of risk to sponsors.
It removes control and increased risk. Now, sponsors have been kind of beat up by this administration, to be really honest, with some of the tariffs and legislation that's in play. So maybe they want to come play ball and they're just not willing to fight some things anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. But I mean, do you think the FDA is like, we insist on this?
No, but if you play nice, do you get something nice back?
Yeah, that's true. And if nothing else, we've seen this administration's been perfectly fair and kept their word at all times. So I would assume that that'll be the case.
Oh.
Oh, you know, time will tell. And again, I want to keep reading up. I'm glad that people are writing more about it.
It'll be interesting because after an RFI, that's generally a precursor to an RFP. So maybe there'll be additional information though as they come out on what they actually intend to do here. There'll be more specifics and more clarity.
Surely there'll be more clarity.
That assumes people who are involved know what is going on, which that's like the biggest question I have is not only that, like, I'm fine not understanding the details and not being privy to all of the details. I shouldn't be. Most of us shouldn't be. We should understand the premise of it, which is great. What I have very little trust in is that anyone up there actually has thought this through or understands what this would also be. Like, I have absolutely sat in rooms with leaders who sit there and pontificate about shit, about how this is going to be the next big thing. This is the game changer. We're going to do this, this, and this. And you're sitting there like, you have no idea how that's going to happen. You have not thought it out. You're just going to assume, well, I said this is going to happen, so we're going to do it. When you're promising shit that is wildly unrealistic and or maybe not even possible. And
that never happens.
Right. And so, like, I have zero faith that can happen at large corporations. That can absolutely happen at the government level too. I like, that's just like the read I get on this.
Government usually pretty much gets it right every time. So I don't know what you're worried about.
But that's like, sometimes you don't get the read. I don't know, it's just like the vibe, the gut feeling you get. You're watching it and you're like, I don't think you know a damn thing what you're saying, and I don't think no one around you really knows. You just decided this is what you're going to do with no context, no detail, and you're launching it. Like, it did not give you those, like, I don't know, but you know, reassuring vibes. It was very much like, no one knows, we're just saying some shit vibes.
Yeah. I'll throw up one more comment by Jonathan. Best analogy I can think of is live telemetry in Formula One racing. The race team, sponsor, regular IRB, can see problems develop in real time and intervene earlier based on a live feed, which, you know what? Maybe that's the first step, is just having insight. So if there's some kind of insight being had, then maybe we can start to drill down to what the problems are. But I mean, first thing you need to do is be able to identify what those problems are. Maybe this opens the path for that.
There you go. I like that take.
Spun it. Positive spin.
Run for office.
We're going to change this podcast to the spin room. and that's what it's going to be called.
Sounds
So
like a fucking
stay
tilt
tuned.
whirl.
Stay tuned for that. All right, that's all I got to say. I'm bored now.
Cool.
What else you got? Anything?
I don't have much else. That's what I've been kind of focusing on, I guess, what's going on in the space. But yeah, not too much else.
Cool. All right. You guys got more thoughts? Let us know. Otherwise, we will see you next Tuesday. And it'll be May. It'll be after May Day, though.
It will be. We'll make sure you'll have your basket that you can show us what you got in your basket.
I better have a basket to open on air.
on the 5th. Okay. Be late,
It'll be
but
the 5th. That's fine.
okay.
All good. All right. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Thanks for listening to Note to File. We're committed to continuing to bring you independent and unfiltered coverage of the clinical trial industry.
We want to talk about what you want to hear. So if you have something on your mind, hit us up at notetofilepodcast.com.